Hey guys, Public here back in the video, and today we're going to talk about Voidweaver's best talent in the War Within, at least as it stands right now, which is something you probably didn't expect, which is Devour Matter. This is Voidweaver's spell that increases Shadow or Death's damage on the target when it has an Absorb Shield active, so let's talk about it. Okay, so if you haven't been paying a whole lot of attention, they did a lot of changes and kind of layouts of our tree and that kind of thing. One of them was making Devour Matter now just something you get all the time in the Voidweaver tree. You have to path through it, you're going to get it for free eventually. It did used to be a choice node, which kind of make it so you almost never took it because it is kind of situationally useful. So a little bit of a bait in the title, but you know, this is quite true in that this thing is extremely strong when it's useful, which is kind of leading to one of Voidweaver's biggest strengths in the War Within, which is in particular getting to use this talent, because we're effectively going to be balanced without this talent being used, right? Because it's not active most of the time, they're going to balance our damage out of the stuff that we can do normally, right? Like Void Blast and Tropic Rift damage, that kind of thing. When it comes to Devour Matter, this is just kind of icing on top, and so whenever we get to use this, Voidweaver as a whole, it gets a lot better really quickly, which also kind of plays in. Usually Voidweaver, especially inside of raiding, is preferred running with Mindbender, Inescapable Torment, Mastermind, that kind of thing, which kind of further buffs up Devour Matter. And then certain builds will take Death Speaker, although it kind of depends on the situation, if that makes sense. And typically, if you're trying to build around Devour Matter, would you want to take Death Speaker? It kind of depends on how much of the fight is in that window. So, in specifically, like, hey, if the fight has only 10% of its window that has this Absorb Shield active, yeah, you probably don't want to adjust your build for it. But in that 10% window, just as a baseline with Voidweaver, you're going to put out a lot more damage. And in specifically, this is a full single target sim. Now, obviously, the caveat here, this is giving the bonus the entire 5-minute duration. So you have to kind of think about it in just like relative percentages here of saying like, okay, hey, when this is active over a long enough period of time, you can expect to see about a 10% gain here. Now, big difference will matter depending on whether or not this is inside of execute when this window happens, but you can see like just the sheer potential of the talent is definitely here. And when we pop this open, you can see that Shadow or Death becomes basically your second most valuable spell. It's barely behind Devouring Plague in terms of damage per execute time. It is pretty close, it's up there, but you know, you can kind of see, you know, where it's actually coming in terms of your overall damage share. And in the breakdown, it's your second highest damaging ability in that specific window. If you kind of look at the whole fight, it's doing overall 12.8% of our damage. And if you look at just kind of a normal sim without that bonus added, Shadow or Death is only 1.7%. Like, we pretty much only press it inside of Execute or Inescapable Torment windows, that kind of thing, and you can see it's a lot further down on our list here. So this is going to be really relevant for, you know, fights that kind of can make use out of this enough to where like this is enough to bridge the gap between Archon, for example. Because obviously we are competing with the other hero talent of like which one is better to play on a certain fight. And this is certainly a good argument for like maybe this makes sense to run, because it is very close between Archon and Voidweaver on like a single target situation, particularly if both of them have to take Shadow Crash. And getting it just a couple windows at a fight where Devour Matter is useful will likely bring this over the edge. In particular, the last two fights of the first raid inside of the War Within both seem to have Absorb Shield, so I think we're going to see pretty good value out of playing Voidweaver specifically on those fights if you can make it work. Now, obviously, you know, timings are really important and whether or not you're in cooldowns in that moment, but this is going to end up being kind of the sleeper talent, I think, for Voidweaver, that if used correctly and used well within a build and kind of picking smartly around Voidweaver, I think you can get really good results out of this, and you're going to be kind of surprised at when that shows up. So one thing to keep in mind, and I'm still not sure the best way to do this from like a UI perspective, but you want to make sure that your UI will clearly show you when the target has an Absorb Shield available to get this extra bonus from Devour Matter. Now, of course, it does depend on how big the Absorb Shield is, because it deals extra damage up to this extra amount. And right now it's just a static amount of spell power, but man, does this thing hit hard. And the other big thing too to think about, and we'll show this baseline, is the Insanity generation as well that you also get as a benefit. So during this time, if I scroll down to our Insanity gains, you can see Shadow or Death is all the way down here at 43.5 inside of this. It's only 2% of our total Insanity gain normally. It's only, I think, 4 Insanity baseline. With this though, every cast with the Absorb Shield becomes 9% or 9 insanity. So we pop that open and see how much of that share is. You can see insanity gains is a little different. Shadow or Death is now all the way up here. And you can see it's now 13% of our insanity generation. So this is, not only is the damage really good, the insanity generation is also insanely powerful. It's almost our best insanity generation spell. It's pretty close. So yeah, this is a really big benefit for Voidweaver, and something that I don't think a whole lot of people were thinking about, just because it is kind of niche, but we'll see. Hopefully we get some more cases where this is relevant, but let me know what you think. Let me know if you're excited to play Voidweaver or check out some of these talents. But yeah, that's all we have in this video. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.